Welcome back to both of you. And we're going to return to a story, first of all, that we looked at in the last hour, and our story as well, and the shooting of a second person in Minneapolis in a matter of weeks by ICE agents. This is the take on it inside the Sunday Telegraph.
Yeah, and it's 37-year-old Alex Pretty who has lost his life. And I think we were talking before that actually sometimes that can get lost in all of the kerfuffle and the noise. But thinking that ICE are primarily there to keep American citizens safe, supposedly, from illegal aliens, and actually they're now shooting their own citizens is quite something, and seems like a bit of an overreach. There's a big government narrative around it, which is that this guy was a domestic terrorist, no investigation, no police reports, and the state and the federal are almost in battle with each other. And so I think this is just a really shocking and sad story, and of course, becoming all desensitised to videos of people being shot by ICE agents and it being all over the internet, so you can only feel for his family, who have done a statement just saying that that's not who he is. He's not a domestic terrorist. He's an ICU nurse. Yeah. And I think this Trump circus that everyone's caught up in globally, not just in America, I think it's just showing some really deadly consequences which feel hard and unfair.
I think you're right about that point about becoming desensitised. We're seeing this way too often. Twice in 2 weeks now we've seen someone shot on the streets of that city, and it's been played on the internet.
It's harrowing, and the footage is just awful. And 10 shots for Alex Pretty, and he's not even there was no reason for it. He's holding a phone, and they're claiming he was holding a gun. It's just, there are no words.
Yeah, and a huge battle now as well going on between the local authorities and the Trump administration as well over these issues, and we will hear lots more about that. And people out in the streets protesting as well. But let's move on and reflect on another story involving Donald Trump, who has caused a great deal of controversy in the last few days with his comments about NATO forces being a bit off the front line. Right. He said something like that, didn't he?
They stayed a little back.
That's right, stayed a little back. So the Sun on Sunday is saying that the reason he's now put out a social media post praising British forces is because of concern that the King was upset about it.
Yes, so he issued a statement on Truth Social yesterday. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was a backtrack from his comments on Fox News that rightly provoked outrage from veterans' families, from Prince Harry himself, who served in Afghanistan on 2 tours and was in the British Army for 10 years. And now we understand that the King, through back channels, has gotten the message across to Trump that he was deeply concerned about the outrage these comments caused and the anger over what he had suggested, which was abhorrent. And I actually spent the day part of the day speaking to Ben Parkinson's mother. He was one of the most injured troops in Afghanistan, if not the most. And the wording she used, and of course it's just, it's awful. She just said, you couldn't believe your ears when you were listening to this, and it was just absolutely horrifying. She said it was dismissive, disrespectful, and utterly disgraceful. That was her wording. So Trump, we know, listens to the royal family. We know he has a borderline obsession with the royal family. And the King has on previous occasions, for example, during the state visit recently, been able to bend his ear and change his stance, particularly on Ukraine, which we know the King feels very passionately about and has been very outspoken about. So it was an effective use of the soft diplomacy that the royal family is famous for. But what is interesting about this is everything about the visit that he is supposedly going to do in April to mark the US 250th independence anniversary is called into question, because how can the King possibly go at the moment with...
Do you think he still will?
Well, I think that this is all up in the air.
It remains in question.
It completely remains in question. You know, you've got Trump threatening the sovereignty of nations, like the Greenland foray. Now you've got this openly insulting British veterans. So I think the King is in a very difficult position. Obviously, he'll be guided by the Foreign Office, but definitely it's up in the air.
It's interesting that could continue despite this backtrack. Of course, it's probably likely that it will. Let's move on to this on the front of the Telegraph sidebar story here. Take us through the reporting here.
Oh, yes. So the Telegraph's revealed that Harry Stalker just sat a few metres behind him at court on 2 days this week. We know he was in the Royal Courts of Justice this week for the privacy claim against Associated Newspapers, the publishers of the Mail and the Mail on Sunday. So the stalker, who we understand is suffering from mental health issues, took a seat in the public gallery of the trial, and there was nothing that his private security could do to stop her, even though they knew what she looked like and who she was, because she's been identified, as someone that is sort of threatening his, it has stalked him before, has visited Nigeria when he broke into the Well Child Awards in September. So actually, though terrifying, obviously, this might work in Harry's favour because currently there's an ongoing review ordered by the Home Office last month of the security threat posed to him. Mm-hmm. He was last assessed in 2019 when he was a working royal, and he was level 7 out of 7. So I think that this will work in his favour after he lost, obviously, the case against him.
And he's made the case, hasn't he, that he doesn't want to bring his family to this country until he feels that they would be secured. He's got a lot riding on this review.
Yeah, and I think it's not, maybe even further than working in his favour, it's working for his safety. Yeah. I think most of us would be absolutely terrified if you knew you had a stalker and they were able to get metres from you several times and are willing to literally travel the globe to follow you. I think that just requires a lot of, sympathy and compassion, but also security.
Yeah, and talking more broadly about the issue of security, Janelle, take us to which paper is it? The Telegraph, Inside the Telegraph. They're reflecting on something that we've been reporting on this morning, the latest sort of nugget from the white paper that the Home Secretary is bringing out tomorrow on policing. The suggestion that Britain needs its own version of the FBI.
And I think it's really interesting, the leaks before the budget and now the leaks before this white paper tomorrow. There seems to be a little bit of a leaky bucket there. But, I think this is actually quite an interesting concept. I think at first glance, when you think about liken to the FBI, looking at what's happening in America at the moment, that actually sounds terrifying. But I think when you read into the detail a bit more about what the potential plans are, you can see that there may be something in what Shabana Mahmood is suggesting, and I'm sure a big civil service team behind her working on also as well. Really interesting to think about a big national police force almost with its own commissioner working across the country on crimes. And when you think about things like county lines, when you think about things like grooming gangs and other kinds of... The internet really has made our country even smaller than it is. You can actually see how resources can be spent doubly fighting the same crimes or patterns of behaviour that are not just in one county. So in 1962, there were 120 constabularies. Now there's 43. And now they want to make them fewer again and then have this National Police Service, which they say could save £350 million a year through not duplicating work. So when you think about the grooming gangs and how they're looked at over here, looked at over there, this police force doesn't report to this police force, you can see how a more national picture would help.
There are some criticisms though as well, aren't there? There's a sort of sense that you could lose local accountability, local relationships as well, that although long-term the hope is that you'd save money, short-term it'd be very expensive to set up. There are various criticisms.
And when it can be set up as well, it might be
that's
a decade at least.
But the Met Commissioner has actually said he thinks it's a good idea because it will take the big crimes off their plate. And as someone close to me got their bag nicked in a pub in London this past week with their computer, their wallet and everything, what are the chances of that being recovered, being tracked down? So you do need local police doing things like that. There has to be consequences for things like nicking a bag and a phone.
Yeah,
but at the moment there aren't.
The Home Secretary's argument is that, saving a bit of money frees up the local police to concentrate on those crimes. Whether or not that would happen, we'll see.
Yeah, sorry about that theft. Hope you get some of the stuff back.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't mine, but the laptop has been retrieved.
Oh, there you go. Silver lining.
Oh, no, not the laptop. A new laptop has been retrieved.
It's not as good.
India moves on to this one in the Mail. This is Andy Burnham, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Machinations within the Labour Party.
Yes, so potential leadership challenge to Keir Starmer by the King of the North. So he's been very openly critical of the government's direction. Many Labour MPs back him. Ed Miliband was speaking about how brilliant he is and how he should move back to Westminster, where he was last 10 years ago, I believe.
Yes, been a long time. He left in 2015 after he lost that challenge.
Exactly. And I think we will find out today from Labour's National Executive Committee. They do obviously have the power to block him from standing down as Manchester's mayor in order to become an MP candidate. But we hear that Sir Keir's loyalists are going to be introducing rules that only allow women or ethnic minorities to be shortlisted for the position in order to block him. But as Janelle pointed out earlier, it would look like Sir Keir was fearful of that leadership challenge and would be running scared.
It's a bit of a lose-lose for Keir Starmer in a way, isn't it?
And Andy Burnham said, he's not trying to come against the government, he's trying to support it. That does not mean he doesn't say he's not running.
No.
He just says he's trying to support the government, and that could mean leading it in his case. But I do think it's really interesting. I think this opens the way for Will Streeting and Shabana Mahmood to kind of more launch their own leadership moves, because the only reason why he would come back and be an MP at this stage after a really successful run as a mayor, quite honestly, would be to lead the whole party.
And this is if he wins the candidacy
and he wins the
by-election.
Yes, and we've got quite a few. We're kind of crowning him before we had like the march up the mole, but yeah.
Yeah, and an example of what a distraction it could be, I guess, that we're talking about it even now.
And Reform are off the pages in Labour.
Well, India, thanks so much for that. See you again next time.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for being with us.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?